Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. I've got a question from Mr. John Nilsson, and this is on the video Amy James and Trump Derangement Syndrome. He makes an assertion first. He says, if a country wasn't putting tariffs on the USA, and USA wasn't at least matching them, that would be altruistic. And I say that this is possibly arguable. He says there may be certain cases, but those cases better 100% be for some objective gain for individual rights or reason, etc. And then a couple days later, with no reply from me, he says, could you explain, please? So let's chew on this a little bit. First of all, I define tariffs as economic warfare. They're damaging. The reason I say that is because the power to tax is the power to destroy. And tariffs are attacks on foreign industry. They're attacks on your own citizenry, but that your citizenry can subvert or avoid the tax by purchasing within your borders. So it is a power to destroy foreign industry, really, because it doesn't affect domestic industry. Tariffs do not. However, I want to add that it can have an effect on domestic industry. It can have some effect on the domestic scene. Let me say that Germany puts a tariff on America, on automobiles, let's say, 25% tariff on automobiles, making, therefore, Fords and Chevys very expensive if you go to Germany. And we do not put a tariff on German automobiles. Let's just assume that that's the case for the sake of argument. What Germany has done is they've married themselves to the automobiles they make in their country, and they've made it difficult for their citizenry to get anything else outside of the country. The effect that this really has in Germany is that they have expensive automobiles, and they can't import Fords and Chevys, which are half the price of a Mercedes, at regular price. They have to import them at this inflated price. So a Chevy on the dealer floor is $40,000, and a Mercedes on the dealer floor is $40,000. Now, what are you going to get? The Mercedes are definitely better vehicles. So the effect on the German economy is that people who can only afford a $20,000 car just ride the bus. They just ride the bus. And all the efficiencies that go along with not having an automobile. If you have to move large objects or something like this, you're just screwed. You have to rent a taxi or something like this. So these people who want to have an automobile and the freedom and the economic benefits of it can't. A whole section of the German economy is cut off and shut off from effective, low-priced, good automobiles in this theoretical world. Now, you say they would just buy a VW, because that's also a German car maker. So, all right, well enough, point taken. But if America, for example, has a certain standard of automobile production, there's nobody in America that can make some garbage substandard automobile. But it could be the case that some Americans might buy it if it were available. Some Americans might even be able to make use of it. It might even improve their efficiency if it were available at the low price. So Germany does a stupid thing by depriving itself of cheap Fords and Chevys. Meanwhile, America, with no trade tariffs against Germany, we're hurt by the fact that we're not exporting Chevys and Fords, but at least we're not cutting ourselves off from the Mercedes. And do we need the Mercedes? And there's the argument. So it might be not Mercedes that we're talking about. But Mercedes could be the example because they have the Unimog, which is this four-wheel drive vehicle that's very good. And let's say you need a Cadillac or a Mercedes limousine. Cadillacs are garbage, let's face it. You're going to get the Mercedes just because you want to have a nice limousine. So we're limiting our own luxury and the well-being of our industry. A Mercedes truck, one of those Mercedes vans to move stuff around, is certainly a better vehicle and more reliable than Chevy or Ford at half the price. So we would be, by putting a tariff on, we'd be cutting ourselves off from the productivity that we could get from the German items. So you're not going to hear me going around saying that tariffs are the way for us to deal with everybody in the world. That's some sort of mercantilism. Free trade is much better. But when we buy Mercedes automobiles from Germany, we send them cash and they send us an automobile, one automobile. The automobile then gets used, we get whatever use out of it, but then Germany's got not only the cash we gave them, but the factory the automobile was made in. And if we want another automobile, we have to call them again. Okay? So that worries me. So I don't want to ship our factories overseas. I don't want Mercedes to be giving us automobiles if Mercedes is in a country that's going to be violent towards America or isn't helpful towards America, which means individual rights, a country that's not in favor of individual rights. So tariffs properly used, the way Trump's using them, are economic warfare against enemies. And if he thinks that we're being taken advantage of economically by one of our opponents, I would say in some cases he's mistaken, and that we shouldn't be entering economic warfare, for example, against Germany with automobiles, because it just limits the productivity and usefulness of our citizens inside of our economy. That's what I would say about that. And why am I worried about China? Well, because first of all, we don't want to send factories over there, which is what we do when we buy stuff from them, because we don't want them to have factories. We don't want the communists to be productive, because they want to kill us. They want to kill us. So we don't want to give them productivity. I think this is insane. But secondly, and more importantly, we don't get good products from them. We have to tear down the houses that are built with their sheetrock. We have to throw away the Christmas lights that come from China because you get lead on your hands just by handling them. Our pets die. Baby milk is unsafe. Just the list just goes on and on and on. They can't make good products, and they can't because there's no legal accountability in their country. So we're shipping them money and factories, and they're shipping us garbage. Now, at least in the case of Germany, or let's say Switzerland, let's look at Switzerland. You buy a good watch from Switzerland, or for half the price you buy an American watch. It doesn't really make sense anymore with all electronics, but back in the day when the watch industry was really a thing, or the clock industry was really a thing, you could buy a wooden clock in America for $5 or $10, or you could buy a Swiss watch or Swiss clock for $30 or $40. The difference is that the American one didn't keep time, and it broke, and it was made of wood, and it wore out. Whereas the Swiss one was reliable, would keep time for years. It was an heirloom you could pass down. Now, do we want to cut our economy off from those valuable, high-quality tools? I don't think we want to cut our economy off from those tools. I'm in favor of free trade. I'm in favor of tariffs against our enemies. And I think that Trump is not real good at defining who our enemies are. But when he uses tariffs against China, I can't figure out any reason to gripe about it. Steel tariffs against Canada, why? Let's say there's a big world war and we need steel production. What does it matter if it's in Canada? Are we going to fight Canada? I don't want steel production in China. I don't want to help them be steel producers. I'd rather it be in Mexico or Brazil or Canada. Why steel tariffs against Canada? I don't get that. But against China, hello, why not? And if we do, steel tariffs against Canada, please, Trump, why? So they're dumping money into their steel industry up in Canada, let's say. They're subsidizing it. And so their steel is coming across the border cheap because they're dumping tax money into it. So we shut down our steel mills in America and buy cheaper steel from Canada. Now, we lose one factory, one steel mill. Now, and we get cheaper steel. We build more of this, that, and the other, cars, boats, freeways. We build all kinds of stuff and more of it because we're getting cheaper stuff from Canada. So Canada's stupid for dumping money to their industry, but we should take advantage of it and import the steel. Not if it's a slave society, though. We should not do that with China. We shouldn't just wave our hand and say, oh, it doesn't matter where the steel factories are. As so far as they're in the free world, we really shouldn't care too much, or at least I think we should have some steel factories in the Western Hemisphere. Shouldn't we? Isn't that reasonable? Isn't that a reasonable desire for the United States security, national security, to have some steel industry in the Western Hemisphere? I think so. That's reasonable. So we should adjust our tariff laws according to our national security. Is that reasonable, I think? I feel like I'm talking to leftivists all the time. I'm not talking to John when I ask, is that reasonable? I think he agrees with me that we can use tariffs. I'm just trying to warn John and anyone else who takes my endorsement of tariffs against China to be a general endorsement of tariffs as an economic tool. They're damaging, and there's collateral damage when you use tariffs to your own population who isn't able to get whatever goods you've now restricted to them, and to the country that was selling stuff to you. They've now shut down and shuttered factories that were working to send you stuff. So there's damage on both sides when you use tariffs. So if someone uses tariffs against us and puts a restriction on their economy, our answer should be, well, stupid you. Now our economy's going to develop faster and better. But let's say we cut China off. China can't say that to us. Stupid you. China's going to develop faster and better. They can't say that, can they? Because they don't have freedom, baby. So that's really the end answer. We have freedom. We should not use tariffs unless we want to enter economic warfare against somebody, damage their industry inside their country, push them around. Really what we're doing is we're stopping them having the benefit of trading with us. With us. They don't have the benefit of free trade with us. We're saying you can trade with anybody else in the world you want, but when you want to trade with America, you have to pay this, or Americans have to pay to get your stuff. See, it's damage that we're doing. We're fighting with people. It's warfare. That's why I'm in favor of Trump's use of tariffs against China. All right, I think we've clarified that. If there are further questions, put it in the comments. Please let me know. If you are interested in Mr. Cropper's project more broadly, and you'd think of me more as a long-term objectivist and not just some guy on YouTube doing random videos, then you should go subscribe to me on Patreon and get access to the present videos I have there and the future ones that will be coming. Because I think what I'll do is I'll put my most important, very essential videos there. And fluffy, light stuff like this I'll keep putting out, short things like this. Also, I have nice little chats that I do that are pretty informal. I put those on there because I don't want to bother the regular viewer with sitting and listening. It's only my hardcore guests that I want them to be bothered with sitting and listening to me while I hum and hoe and paint. So go on to Patreon and check me out for that. $5 a month, $10 a month, $50 a month, whatever you want to do to support the direction Mr. Cropper is trying to take objectivism. That is my plan. All right, please join me on Patreon. And leave comments, like, comment, subscribe. Smash that like button. Just trying to find the video file. There it is. Smash that like button. Thank you.